Welcome back, Screamers, to another round of 0 Point reviews with Jeff and Kev. This time we're talking about 2011's The Thing, which is a prequel to John Carpenter's 82, The Thing, but without the change in any sort of name. This is my first time watching it. Kevin, was this your first time watching this too?
Yeah, it was pretty much my first time hearing about it too. Yeah, no, I think I just found out about this when you told me about it 3 weeks ago, and I was like, "That's a thing?" Like, no pun intended.
The Thing, but it could be The Thing.
The Thing, which we wanted to go with that joke this week, but this. Well, should we just get into the spoiler now? The film's not that clever to be called The Thing.
Yeah, we could do that.
Yeah.
I mean, the movie's been out since 2011. Like, are we really talking spoilers after 12 years? I think not.
Well, for us, apparently.
Well, it's a prequel. How much can you really spoil going into the movie that's from like 1982, really? You know, the Thing ain't gonna die at the end of this movie.
No, that's true. And the movie didn't end the way that Carpenter's Thing began. So they had to do a bunch of reshoots to make it actually look that way. And it's very noticeable by the end. You're like, oh, okay. They just kind of reshot that and added it in the credits there. And yeah, apparently you look online and that's what they did. They were filming reshoots up until 2 weeks prior to releasing them to theaters.
Yeah, this one was heading to that finish line like really quick, and it wasn't quite done. And of course, you know, special effects were not great. And of course, the big story about this movie is they pretty much killed almost all the practical effects, replaced it with CGI per studio mandate in post-production. And it shows.
Yes. And like, tonight's one of those nights where can you crack a joke about it looking like shit? Sure. But how many times are you going to do that and it be relevant, funny, clever, what have you? So, I mean, we grabbed a couple moments that was like really blatant. And these are moments that take the fun or take you out of the fun of the film, where they really screwed up by flat out painting over practical effects that were done masterfully well. The studio wasn't down with it, so they put CG over it, like literal shit that your 12-year-old nephew can do within 2 weeks left.
Yeah, I do not understand the reasoning for it, like, at all. Like, you can't sit there and tell me the practical effects were that horrible that you decided to go with CGI. You wanted the CGI just to erase somebody else's work, basically. Like, man, that's the kind of studio interference you don't really hear about much anymore, where basically it's done, but then like a couple weeks before it comes out in theaters, or a month or so, hey, let's do our reshoots and totally fuck up the film. And like, I just don't understand the reasoning behind replacing all that work. Because anytime you've seen any of the stills or you do any sort of research online from what they did do for behind the scenes pictures and whatnot, everything looked fine. I don't understand. This is one of those random times where it's like, what the hell was really going on here? And of course, then the director and the actors, they're all like trying to put on a happy face, being like, hey, we still put our best effort in and we believe in this movie. But you also get that feeling in the back of their voice and in their minds and in their eyes. This isn't the movie we signed up for, and this isn't the movie we made. The studio had other thoughts.
Yeah. So, I mean, with that having been said, we apologize in advance for the jokes that we will make about it, because the jokes aren't about the cast and crew of this film. It's about Universal Studios and their colossal blundering and blundering and blundering of franchises that make them a lot of money. This is just another one of those franchises that they crapped out, and it sucks really bad.
Right. And this is one of those cases where they pretty much killed any option for a franchise this had by their ineptitude and how they handled the finishing of this film. Because if you do a little bit of research online into this movie, they were trying to set up for another sequel leading into the 82 one, which of course never happened. And so people wonder, like, so what happens with Kate at the end of this movie? Well, we can either get into that now or we can get into it later. But ideally, they were intending to have her battle the Thang at a South Pole research station, still battling that in between that and the 1982 film. So there was going to be yet one more still prequel going on.
I see. So she was going to be down at the Russian station, and then Lars was going to. Okay, I gotcha. They overcomplicated it.
Yeah.
And they didn't need to, and they convoluted it is what really happened, to the point where it's like, I even cracked the joke, looking through the did you know facts in IMDb became monotonous and I couldn't finish reading it.
Yeah.
Like I finished watching the movie, but this was one of the first times in months on ZPR where I've like been keep looking at the time to see, is this almost over yet? Probably not since we did War of the Worlds. If I really wanted out of a movie.
Oh, I thought you were going to say the TV show when we did season 1 of that.
Yeah, pretty much. But the Tom
where
Cruise
you could cut out
too.
like about 12 episodes of the 24 episode season it was. But no, like to your point, there's a part in the middle of this movie where you could easily cut out like 10 or 15 minutes, but at the same time as it also felt like things were still missing from the movie. Like something happened in the editing bay where they even it felt like they took scenes out that would have helped. And maybe that might have helped with the pacing issues in the middle of the movie. Because that's honestly what I felt. Like the first third of the movie, I'm like, okay, I'm feeling this. You're introducing the characters. We understand what's going on. We're getting there. Then you hit the middle third, and it's like, okay, we're meandering a little bit. A little bit more. Okay, that's interesting. And then we get into the final third, and it's like, okay, now we're rolling here. But for some reason, that middle third just meanders and just goes off in a few different directions that it doesn't need to. And it's like, hey, you don't want to show when somebody possibly became the Thang, but because they did that in the original too. There was clearly times when certain characters were off screen, and sometimes they were human, sometimes they weren't. You can do that in this movie too. That's fine. But it's like they tried to come up with ways to show when they possibly could have been taken over or replaced. And then other times, not so much. It's kind of like they're throwing darts at a dartboard in the middle of this movie. And I'm like, I don't know if that really works for this flick. Overall, I like the movie, but like that middle part of the movie is just it's a bit hard to get through.
Yes. Like I had a lot of problem with it, not just so much with the pacing, but with the characters and the way that they all kind of interacted. This movie is more of a remake of The Thing from Another World.
Right.
To the point where the character Xander, who is the benefactor of this dig, basically, looks just like the scientist or the lead scientist in the original Thing.
Pretty close, yeah.
And he's a big prick too. And
oh yeah.
He does die in this one. I don't think the doctor died in the original one, but this one you can't wait for him to go. But where I started having a problem is where he hires a paleontologist, a smart one too,
Yep.
to get this frozen specimen out of the ice safely. And they want to drill into it, take a core sample real quick. to sample it. So they've got 2 samples of the thing now spread apart. And she's trying to explain to them that's not a good idea, and she's starting to explain why, and he cuts her off, and they go out into the other room, and she's starting to explain again why it's a bad idea, and he's like, okay, yeah, that's great. Don't ever contradict me in front of those people again.
Why the fuck did you even bring her there in the first place then? That's supposed to
Yeah.
be your job, to bring that perspective of this is a good idea, this is a bad idea. What you do with that idea is then ultimately your decision. Yes, you're the man in charge, but you really should be listening to everybody. You should be saying, hey, I want to do this. Anybody have anything contrary or they support this? Say it now before I drill, regardless of whatever you say. But if you have an opinion, I want to hear it. And if you can change my mind, great. That's just, he's like, nope, this is what we're doing, and shut the fuck up.
I'm rich, you suck, we're going.
Yeah,
And
it's
then, of
almost
course,
like, why didn't he just, I don't know. That was where I started to be like, what the hell did you even try and bring her down here for? You're just going to dismiss her like that. And don't say as, oh, that's part of the script and how they wanted to develop his character to be an asshole. It's like, no, that's just complete stupidity. That's something you would eventually see in like the Prometheus movie from Ridley Scott. Like, oh, the scientists, yeah, we brought all these smart, brainy people. We're now on the alien planet. Hey, let's start fucking with shit that we don't know what's going on, and let's take our helmets off. I like Prometheus, but I had a problem with that logic. And it's right here in this movie too.
Yes. It gets to the point where everyone's surprised that it happens, with like when the creature escapes, and she's standing here behind this guy like, don't ever contradict me in front of the people again. Like, you fucking asshole. It's not like she didn't tell you that wasn't gonna fucking happen.
Right.
And so, I mean, at that point, that's where the movie started really losing me. So, like I gave it a good fair shake after that. It's like, but there's really no redeeming quality to those characters, so you don't feel any fear for their safety like you did for the characters in the original movie.
Right. Well, and you also largely know that the alien survives at the end. It clearly is going to make its way to Outpost 31 with the people from the original 82 movie. What we don't know about is like, okay, where's Lars come from? Where's the helicopter come from? Because they just, there is enough Easter eggs and something to sink into that joins the two together. That's like, no, I'm on board with how it connects, but most of the characters, unlike the original one, most of them are just not terribly likable. And the ones I did like, man,
didn't speak English.
Yeah, they didn't really speak English. Like the guy who, for you Game of Thrones fans, if you haven't seen this movie, Tormund is in this movie, and he plays Kristoff. Or no, that's his name. That's Kristoff. He forgot what his name. Oh, Jonas. He's Jonas in this one, and he barely speaks any freaking English. And I understand there's a lot of Norwegians in this movie. That's fine. Don't have a problem with that. That's actually really awesome. And I love seeing him in it, but man, it felt like he was just kind of like this 4th tier character off to the side. I'm like, if you're going to do him dirty like that, give him a fucking badass death,
I thought you were talking about the guy that had the flamethrower at first. I was like, this guy's got fucking balls. I liked his moxie.
Oh yeah, that was Lars, I believe.
Yeah.
Yeah, Lars is really cool, and he's the one who ends up being the sniper in the helicopter, which ties in at the end. And I really like that.
Yeah, I mean, it sucks for him, but I mean, it sucked from the get-go. Like, he's going to go out trying to help those guys. One thing that they didn't cross, because like you said, there are a ton of Easter egg moments in this that do connect that. I call that points of responsibility as a prequel. And there's quite a few moments that they got right. Others felt forced, and then others got cut out altogether. It's like, but why?
Or when that happened, that character didn't look like he was close to slitting his wrists. Just
Yep,
saying.
they put it
Even
in
though it
there.
ties into the movie, but like we lost that. It felt like there was a scene or two missing with him and how he came to that point.
Yeah. And from what I read and what I saw, it's when the guy's arms that came off and then split apart again and
Yeah.
that part, he locked himself in that room. Everyone else was going the other direction, and the little scuttery things were still coming in the room towards him. So he cuts his wrist, and then he sits down and he cuts his throat. Very not believable whatsoever. Like, that hurts enough. That's got to be like serious dedication to cut your arteries and shit all the way through. That usually needs some assistance.
Speaking like a person who has firsthand experience in doing a Colombian necktie.
We've watched a lot of Hannibal on this show.
TV show, and maybe we'll do the movies at some point.
I feel like we have, though, which is weird.
Yeah, right.
Anyway, but yeah, it's that was the big point of responsibility, because they showed the aftermath of it, but they didn't actually show it happening. They cut it out because it made the movie go on too long. And
okay, you cut out the stuff you need to explain the plot and how things get from point A to point C. Yeah, you cut out, you leave in shit that doesn't even need to be there.
Yeah, like someone cleaned up all the blood. Well, okay, we figured that out. We don't need to have a fucking talk about it for that long time. And there was also there was a lot of things that dragged on. And like, for me, it was the party scene before the monster was getting out and the dude busts out the ukulele. I felt this image from Deadpool, the game, so hard. Like, make it stop. And they just wouldn't. And it sucked, because when the guy comes in and tells them that the fucking thing escaped and it's alive and loose, everyone's just sitting there fucking in Norwegian, cuckoo, cuckoo.
They're like, he's nuts.
Fuck those guys.
You'd think within like 5 seconds they'd be like, oh shit, just look at him. Does it look like he's fucking around with everybody? No. He looks fucking terrified.
In all fairness, they did just make him shit his pants.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that was pretty good. That didn't get me as a jump scare, but I just kind of, I had a big old grin. I'm like, okay, if I was in the theater for that, that would have been pretty funny to see who would have jumped at that.
Oh yeah, and like, just as a guy, that's fucking funny, because that's what you would do to one another. So it's like, Dick, got you.
Bitch. I got your bitch ass. Get back to work. Get back to the party. Get drunk. Let's go.
And it's instead of the blood test, that even if they would have done the same thing, that would have been okay, because it's probably the most logical thing you could have done.
Yeah, I would have preferred that over the metal fillings and teeth thing. Open your mouth. Like, oh my fucking God. Who came up with that bright idea? That makes like no sense to me.
You're in a fucking outpost with a bunch of Vikings. I'm sorry. It was dumb. I mean, I applaud the fact that they tried to make something logical that they could use as a plot device later on in the film and not be repetitive. And I get that. And I appreciate that from the director, not wanting to be repetitive. But just with the way that they ended up doing the film, it didn't do it any favors.
Yeah, the execution, the idea is sound. The execution was not so great.
And the final result of it was crap. It was really crap and stupid.
But your earring is supposed to be in the other ear. And I'm like, oh dear God. Like that's what we're doing here, yo. You could have just said you're not wearing your earring.
It's fake. I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
I mean, the movie didn't like outright like piss me off or make me angry, and I'm like, hey, whoever wants this can fucking have it. No, I do like the movie, but I do have some issues with it. No movie's perfect. It's fine. It's This is not like the worst thing I have ever seen as far as an alien movie. We can talk about some of those alien sequels in depth if we want to do that. And there's always Alien versus Predator. But the thing, it's got issues. I like it though.
All I'm gonna say is this did have very strong AVP vibes to it.
Yeah, they were definitely pulling from the Alien movies centered around this era of a bubble in time.
Yes, and that's okay because again, like we talked about last week, the original, the 1950s version, a lot of that transformed into become Alien, and they wanted Kate to take a lot of Ripley's persona in this.
Right.
That didn't work. And it's not because of the actor, it's just because of the way that they edited it. Like she's supposed to be fucking freaked out with and using this flamethrower, but if this picture moved, you'd be seeing a big ass smile on her face like, woo!
Yeah, right.
She was really smiling in that scene, and I don't blame her. But there was a lot of moments where she should have been terrified, but they showed a picture of her being curious or smiling, confused. It varies.
She is a scientist to a point. So it's not like you're talking to like some helicopter pilot who just is around for shits and giggles and likes getting drunk on a bunch of whiskey. So, and this is the Walmart exclusive steelbook for this movie, The Thing.
Oh, I didn't know if they'd done that.
Yep. And a little plastic cover that goes right over top.
Neato. Huh. Now, the other
cool
problem
release, gotta say.
Is it like, does it have the good special features? Because I didn't.
It's also got the outpost name, the Travell Station, on the very bottom. So cool. Excellent detail.
And see, that's the thing. Pun. I feel like we should be taking a shot every time we say that accidentally.
I'm out of booze in here.
Like, I really wanted to like this movie, and I think that's what upset me the most. Is I really wanted to like this film, just like I wanted to like Van Helsing, and that turned out to be an hour and a half waste of my time.
There's about 10 good minutes in Helsing.
The beginning. Well, no, I'm sorry, not the beginning, where he's fighting Mr. Hyde. No, I guess even there's too much banter in that too, and you're like, if there's no Deadpool here, it doesn't matter. 0-Point review. But
welcome to ZPR.
What film are we talking about? I wanted to like this. I wanted it to be that prequel that answered so many imaginative questions that you had growing up as a kid, or in my case, in your 20s. And it could have done that, but it did it wrong. And so many things that they did wrong, I understand why Universal didn't do it. For example, no English was necessary in this film. There didn't need to be any Americans. I don't know. I 0-Pointed again.
Well, I wanted to really like this too. I mean, we've heard from a lot of people that really like this movie, and they've said like, hey, this is a great 1-2 punch with the original The Thing. Now, I could see where you're totally at with that. However,
I punched it.
I'm sorry?
I said, I punched it.
Oh, yeah. But, there to that point, and I'm not going to have you derail me, is that for me, it's not exactly a great 1-2 punch. It's a great punch, and then this is kind of like a prologue that kind of works. like I said, I like it. I don't love it. It's got its problems, it's got its flaws. A lot of that is from studio meddling in it. Like
Yes.
if we had had practical effects, I would probably like it visually more than I did as is. I mean, it's wonderfully shot. The work is clearly top notch in this movie for everything else that we see. The sound design is excellent.
Yep.
Cinematography is really good. Good use of lighting at times.
Hell,
And
the
just,
sounds. Oh, sorry.
no, I mean, like there is a lot to like about this movie. It's just unfortunate that a lot of the problems just kind of pull it down from being, I would have loved this to have been fucking awesome. And it ended up being, it's a,
It's all right. It's cool. Yeah, I mean, I can't say it's a good movie or it's fun. I didn't necessarily have fun in it. It had some good moments in it. And for me, those were those moments of responsibility, the Easter eggs that did occur. And not to show this picture again, but
uh-oh.
just the axe there. That's the axe that Mac finds later on in the next movie. So, I mean, they showed how that axe got there, and that was neat. And then we see other creatures that you see bits and pieces of them in the original. You see them live, as it were, here.
Oh
And
yeah, like the two heads that melded together and got it contorted and were burnt outside that end up going to Outpost 31. That was really, I'm like, oh, that's really neat. I like that. That works.
that was the only part that where you're kind of like, okay, this feels like the thing. Otherwise, it was a little different. The alien was insectoid for one thing. Like
Yeah.
at no point did it have, which I know they hadn't come into contact with humans yet, but they would have already adapted because shit, they're already adapted to the language and knowing the people's mannerisms and shit like that, which happened almost instantly in this film.
Yeah, it took a little time going in the other ones. That's why there's some disjointedness going on between the two movies. And you're trying to bring this one up to speed as quickly as possible when you really didn't need to.
Yes. And the funky part is you get little moments like this that are stunning and beautiful where this
That's,
guy's
yeah.
yeah, this is practical. He's inside of this creature when they're doing an autopsy, and you expect you could see more things like that, and you don't. That's probably about as beautiful as it gets.
And if they could do that really good, what the fuck with the rest of the movie? Like, really?
Because then you have this lady here who could have been really awesome. Now, this was cool, but it could have been really awesome using that practical effect that they had,
Yeah.
but weren't allowed to show you. What this turned out looking like was Linda on Evil Dead 2 when she's
Oh,
got no head and they're
yeah.
like trying to push the puppet in the ash. It's really what she kind of looked like.
Yeah.
And then that lead up to that was silly. Like you knew that she was like suckering her in there. So that didn't help, especially having seen later on where you're going to find a much better special effect. Practical.
Yeah, I would agree.
And that wasn't even the worst that we got. The part that pissed me off the most
Uh-oh.
was where you first see the guy in the helicopter transform, and it's not the guy that you think it's going to be, which is kind of predictable, but it was fun. They have him at transform, and it looks horrible, worse than anything that fucking was
Oh my god.
ever in a Treat Williams movie. Trust me, it looked like shit.
I knew you were gonna make a goddamn Deep Rising reference. Deep Rising is better special effects than this horse shit.
No, it doesn't. It's about on par with this shit.
No, it's better than this shit. Dude, a 10-year-old could do Adobe CGI better in this for this movie than anybody else.
My green screens are better than theirs.
Fucker with your
And
Deep Rising bullshit.
They had a $38 million budget and they came in at 31. So this, much like its predecessor, was a flop. Unfortunately, its predecessor was a 10-star film. This was not by any means.
This is Rob Zombie Halloween Part 2 compared to the original Halloween.
Yeah, okay. Oh, yeah, that's good. That's good. Like, yeah, okay. I just saw a movie where Michael Myers' mask is in there and shit, but it's
a movie.
Like, I wanted to apologize to our listeners, and then it's like, oh shit, no, they're gonna like this, because now I'm finding out that we need to apologize to the cast, like, before I stick my foot in my mouth. The director had said that the studio involvement was so bad that it destroyed his passion for filmmaking. Now, before
Which sucks. There's good work in here from him.
Yes. Yeah. And that's why I really wanted to point out and say, you know what? We see that you guys had made a good movie.
Or
and we can see,
to.
Yeah, we see the passion that got put into it. We see the effort that got put into it. The practical effects were there so that the actors had something to react to. Yep. The studio said, no, it looks shitty. Audiences are stupid. They don't want to see that. And that's what Universal thinks. Universal thinks you're stupid. You're not going to pay money for that.
Just and some of these studios they have some of these dumb brain decisions. They think they know how to make a movie better than the people who actually make movies. And look where it's gotten them today. Like, Jesus Christ, we got movies and fatigue going all over the place. You got to look at like independent films or lower budget films and just to get a damn decent movie. You don't need $40 million to do a Thing movie. You need like 20. And the fact that they couldn't even get it fucking right in 2011 with like $38 million, what does that tell you about this studio? Oh, hey, we'll plunk down an extra $8-10 million just to completely rework your practical effects that you just spent all this money on. Like, what are you fucking? This isn't Sonic the Hedgehog where you could just re-render the fucking thing for a whole movie. That's just not, you completely went over somebody else's work. It's not like you had CGI and you're like, yo, this ain't very good, let's redo this. It's no, we're covering up legitimate practical work here. Like,
art.
What are you just? And there's other movies we could run down a list for like hours about, like, you know, if the studio didn't interfere with this movie, if it didn't interfere with that movie, if we got the original cut, this director's cut, that. Most of the time the director's cuts are pretty good, but there's also times where they're not. There's still a movement out there for people to have the practical effects restored for this movie. Never gonna happen. I think that boat is long gone. I would love to see it. I know you probably would too. I'd rewatch this movie in a heartbeat if I could see how it was originally intended to look and if they could recut it.
Yeah, that would be great. Like, with like a disclaimer like we had, like, this is the way that it was originally intended to be seen, but some asshat that used to work here.
Yeah.
But I will say this about that. The asshat that probably made that decision had been working at Universal for some time. I'm not 100% how I know. It just
that fucking creature at the end. Oh my God, with the face.
I was like, what the fuck are you guys doing? That's totally worse than Scorpion King.
I saw that and I'm like, dude, I just shook my head. I'm like, okay, way to kill an audience in the theater and ensure that nobody's gonna have good word of mouth about this movie.
Mm-hmm. And the creatures were things from Dead Space, specifically where like the little tentacle comes up and starts like whipping people like it's a scorpion tail. It's like, hey, now I know where that's from. And again, that's cool because it's all an homage to the original, but it just didn't kind of work. And they set that up to where anybody could have been infected at that point. Like, she loses sight of the American, and the next thing you see is he's telling his buddy, I'll be here with you till the end, buddy. and then he dies. He's got his hand over the guy's fucking mouth and his thumb in his heart. Like, if you look really close, it's not that hard to see. He just killed the guy.
Yep.
I had a picture of it. I just didn't bring it with. But yeah. There was a few pictures where I'm like, hey, where did that go? Like, we talked about the two faces here and stuff. I had to go back and find that. But that was really cool. They put that in. But yeah, I lose shit all the time for this. But apparently they did too.
Yeah.
I don't know. It could have been more. It could have been more. And I don't want to rag on it. I don't want to keep saying Universal sucks and they shit on all their franchises. Yet they do.
All the studios are guilty of this.
Yes. And they're doing things differently now, where this would be a little bit more acceptable, like trying to make a flop on purpose to make an extra buck with insurance fraud, like Discovery Warner Brothers does. But this just didn't work out well. And I don't know why studios think that their constant involvement in hands that they're going to make anything better. Like Bob Iger went on record saying the reason why the Marvels underperformed was because no studio executives were on set.
Go fuck yourself, Bob.
Kinda. Like, I'm not a Brie Larson
Elon
fan or a Miss Marvel fan in general, but fuck you. Like, I'll go watch the movie twice now just to go spite your ass.
We need more middle management. That's what we need. No, you're going in the wrong direction. That's doubling down on your current infrastructure. Can't do that. Gotta change with the times, dude.
Yep.
But if you want to kill your company, you're off to a great start.
Yeah. It'll sell easier.
Now, did you have a favorite character in here? I know most of them are relatively unlikable, but did you even get behind Kate, like, at all?
At the beginning, I did, yes.
Yeah.
Specifically, like when Xander said that shit to her, I was like, oh, girl, fucking kick him in the nuts. Hard.
Yeah.
And she didn't. Like, I mean, she blows him up, I guess, but they cut out the crescendo fight between them, like you said.
Yeah, I wanted to really like her, but she just didn't have that. I call it the Ripley factor. She didn't have like the grit in her or be scrappy enough to be like, I will bite, claw, scratch, and kill you, motherfucker, to stay alive.
Yeah.
And that really wasn't the vibe I got from her. Now, I know she's a decent actress, Ahsoka notwithstanding, and who she's married to. So I will not bite my tongue and be like, she kind of sucked in this one. I gotta say.
Who's she married to?
Ewan McGregor.
Oh.
Obi-Wan, you are our only hope, except for this movie. Please stay out.
I don't know.
Mary Elizabeth Winstead.
I think that everyone probably could have done a great job, and we're seeing not the message that they were trying to convey. And I'm really sorry, y'all, but what they made sucked, and what people paid to see sucked. And like I said, I don't know why studios keep thinking that this is a good idea. Like, hey, we know better.
Yeah. I mean, if you're going to try and do this kind of movie, you almost want to go with actors that fill the role, not, hey, let's write a role for this one particular actor or actress.
Kind of, yeah. Yeah.
It's like you're going from the wrong angle, right angles, yo. Let's not do this obtuse thing of going around and be like, hey, if we can we want her on here because she's cheap. I'm not saying she's cheap. I'm just saying, like, because she's got her salary is what we can make work with our picture. So, hey, let's tailor the role to her and just go from there. It's like, no, write your character as you need to and want to, and cast the right person who can play that character. She played great as a paleontologist, but if I want gritty, I want, the chick from The Relic.
Yeah. Yeah, she was
That was
cool.
what, Penelope Ann Miller?
I think so.
Yeah. Like,
Yeah.
that's a movie that's, that's a person with grit. You could also do Famke Janssen too.
She also has grit and can break you with her thighs.
And yeah, stare lasers through you too with those eyes.
I love them. And they should have made her that type of character. They
Yeah.
shouldn't have
I
done
think she
things.
could have pulled it off, but they didn't let her do it.
No, like her getting into the other snowcat and driving away, like her like staggering. It didn't I guess that didn't help her hero type look. And I know
No.
McCready didn't end that way either, but
It was McCready and Childs at the end, just staring at each other as the night dawned upon them.
yeah.
And for her, it's like, no, I just kind of escaped the last alien. I'm just gonna sit here and decide what I want to do next with my life. I think I'm gonna go to Tahiti.
It's a magical place.
Spring break must be on right now.
Ron Springer!
Shots, shots, everybody doing shots.
They did some of that here, but again, they did it to ukulele music, which I'm kind of like, if it's Hawaiian, sure. If it's, yeah, I'm not certain. No.
Melikaliki waka.
Right? One of the parts where they could have done more and they didn't have enough of it was the what the fuck moments. And this guy here was probably my favorite performance in the whole flick when this thing like latches onto his arm.
Oh yeah.
So sincerely freaked out. And he had nothing on his arm, probably. Like he was having to freak out at a ping pong ball on his arm. And he did a wonderful freak out, and they did a pretty good job of showing one of the few special effects moments or the practical effects where his eye is like bulging out because there's so much alien spunk in his head.
Yeah, that
cool.
was pretty dope. Like when you did get the practical effects, they were pretty on point and on par. It's like, this works for me. Just saying.
They were supposed to show a pilot alien inside of the spaceship.
Yes.
I didn't realize that. So I thought the great big Pac-Man pixel thing that they had was like silly. I'm like, okay, so is that just like their power source? I don't know. But it was it was to cover up this guy. This is what they actually had. And he wasn't the coolest looking thing, but he wasn't the worst looking thing either. Like they put a lot of nice detail and paintwork into that thing.
Well, yeah, you take like the picture on the left, when you have it on set and in the lighting that's needed, you could give it a little more viscous of a look. You could put some like gel or something goopy and liquidy hanging from it.
Yeah.
That's where you can really make that fit into the particular scenes. And just again, I know we're beating the dead horse on this one, but if they had had a chance to show that, it probably would have been just fine. It would have really helped the movie, in my opinion. Other things that they maybe could have like were that I feel like could have helped strengthen the movie is keep the studio out of the fucking editing bay. No, the special effects, but it also felt like something was missing as far as like a little bit of heart to the movie. And I know he wouldn't have done it, but you still could have made the overture. Hey, John, would you make a little theme for this movie, please?
Yeah.
We will give you video game money for the rest of like the year. If you want a membership to the PlayStation Network store, dude, we got you. Just don't buy any movies off of there or TV shows because it's just gonna get yanked from you. But hey, would you mind doing a little instrumental music section score, just like 20-30 seconds somewhere for us, please? And hey, if you want to read the script, if you got any thoughts, cool. If not, that's fine too. but there was no Carpenter involvement at all. Like zilch. It's like, did you even fucking ask? Because if you had
Apparently,
asked, you
no.
could have at least told everybody. We offered him, but he chose not to. And that at that point, hey, you tried. But there's definitely something missing from this movie, and I think like if you could have brought him on board, even just to do a little bit of music, I think that would have gone a long way as well.
Yeah. And they do have that theme
Yeah,
at the very, very end. And again,
yeah,
it was one of those moments where it's a reshoot, and it takes you out of the movie because the movie's over. You've already gone faded to black, gone to credits, and then it turns back on because the music stops and it starts playing Carpenter's theme.
I actually was not expecting that to happen, and when it did happen, I'm like, wait, what? I was actually about to hit the fast forward button to see if there's anything at the end, like a 30-second scene where the helicopter's flying after the dog. Just a distant shot. You don't even need to see like Lars. Oh, we knew they said he was still alive, but you could have left that very ambiguous until you see the helicopter and a guy aiming a gun and they're going after the wolf or the dog. Like, you could have had a distant shot. That's all you needed. You didn't have to do all that you did for that little bit. Keep it simple. But,
Yeah.
this was the studio. This is what they wanted.
They only had one dog in this movie, and it got killed. You don't see it get killed, but I mean, you see the aftermath of it.
Oh, yeah.
And then you forget about that throughout the rest of the movie because you see the dog
Yeah.
now running away. It makes no sense. It just didn't make sense, and it was very out of place. But the studio was like, well, shit, I guess we have to have that in there.
Let's tie it more in directly to the original so that people can feel like, they got to see this.
Yeah. And one of the big things that they did leave out, at least I'm sure it was cut out if they did film it, was the scene where everybody's putting their arms outstretched to show that it's a circle.
Yeah.
They cut that whole thing, didn't they?
I think so.
We ought to have a drinking game for this. I keep saying that thing.
The thing.
And then what else was kind of out there? The two-headed monster. This was these are bad snuggles. It was very awkward to watch. Like the guy's head was on backwards, and then leaning over to give weird kisses on the cheek, and then the cheeks get meshed together and create a wicked, weird O face. Like, oh, ow. And that, of course, becomes our happy little burnt up dude. But that was, again, like one of those few times where you see how quickly it attaches to the skin.
Oh, yeah, that was pretty instant.
Yeah, because you didn't really see that until the end of the last film either, did you? Until Brimley like stuck his hands in that guy's face.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
And that's a good way to show it's always changing and adapting and trying something new. And that's a good element of like surprise and terror. But for some of us who have been watching these kind of movies for like years, it's hard to try and get us in a new and different way. You almost have to go more atmospheric rather than going, say, for like jump scares. You gotta, I mean, this is supposed to be a prequel, so it's like, well, how do you evolve it without referencing the old one and how it gets to that point? So I do feel like they tried to do the best they could with that, but that's not what happened. This is the movie we got.
This is the movie we got, and the action that we got was fun. There was that. There was
I did really like the action in this movie. It was pretty well done, pretty frantic at times without going a whole ton of like quick cuts. So I appreciated that.
Yeah. The editing, I can't say was done well. The Foleys were done extremely well.
Yes.
And where I will say that they were done well is where they failed the worst, which is like the tentacle scene where that guy, like I said, his face splits in half and then he splits in half open. There's like tentacles everywhere.
Yep.
The sound effects was really cool for that. It looked
Right.
like shit, but it sounded really cool.
Yeah.
And apparently they had a lot of tentacles in this movie, like real wire, and the studio kiboshed.
Yep. This is just, it's an unfortunate bump in the road for studio interference and why studios tend to get involved, and you see what happens when they do.
And Iger thinks that movies are bad because it doesn't have enough. So yeah.
That's very true.
Ding dong.
Got any more fun slides for us, Kevin?
More or less. So it's like we talked about the very end that the two of them, the American, the McCready type character, and Kate escape. As they're leaving, he's talking about this Russian place. It's like what, 30 clicks south from there, or 50 miles south. And then she, like you said, she's like, I noticed your earring was on the other ring. And she torches his shit. And you're like, and they all live happily. Oh my God. And all I could think of was the moral of this story is fake earrings were never, ever cool.
Oh my God.
So, all this having been said, and for as trash as this movie truly is, this movie got a 6.2 rating on IMDb. And I thought that it was fairly good because some of the stuff that we've watched has ratings lower than that. And I went through and found some of the shows and movies that we've watched that are far less than a 6.2 rating, that include Cocaine Bear, Baywatch movie and series, Godzilla, The Meg, which was still a lot cooler than this, albeit the special effects, Son-in-Law, which is one of the very few good Thanksgiving movies that don't have Ed O'Neill in it, The Machine, which was fantastic. It had Mr. Hamlin in it as well. Mystery Men, which is a huge favorite for people. Mannequin. Willy's Wonderland. Like, that's where they got me at the fuck you, now I'm going to punch you in the dick movie. And Velma. That one I actually believe.
Yeah, I buy that
too. That's actually true. I'm not making this up. Velma had a 1.6 review out of 10.
Now, is the Amityville Horror, is that supposed to be the remake of that one?
Yes, that's the 2005 version, and I'm kind of like,
with Ryan Reynolds?
Yeah, like, did you guys watch the old one? Because that movie was cool.
I have that one somewhere in here.
It's really good. I like that one.
And of course, Willy's Wonderland, which just got announced for a 4K release coming out in the next few months. Awesome.
And Mr. Parsons did confirm that today. So I was meant to bring that up again as well. Bringing it up for next week, Ernest Saves Christmas only got a 5.7. It at least had a cohesive plot. And the part that pissed me off the most, Days of Our Lives. This has a full star higher than Days of Our Lives, the greatest fucking TV show ever for NBC that wasn't Dark Shadows.
Or Quantum Leap.
Or Constantine. You know what? One of their longest running great shows that we all watched as kids, this is supposedly better than. So I have no more faith in film watching. So I understand what the director was saying as far as, you know, oh, they killed my passion for filmmaking. They killed my passion for film watching. I'm with you, homie.
Yeah. Oh, well.
Don't see this movie. I can't recommend this movie. I can't.
See, I'd at least recommend it for people just to even watch it, because there is a pretty good following for this movie, as evidenced by the ratings, but I don't trust the ratings on IMDb versus Rotten Tomatoes anyway. Trust for your own eyes. There is enough here. If you want just kind of a shut your brain off movie, the original The Thing is the complete opposite. That's a thinking horror movie that will keep you on your toes, and it brings attention. This is missing a lot of what made the first one so goddamn good. But at the same time, I can also appreciate what they were trying to do, and you could see the work. You could see the care and the love that everything that wasn't fucked with by the studio, there is a movie in there. And I like it enough. I'm going to keep this in my collection. I'm not going to sell it, and I'll watch it every once in a while. It's not going to be on a regular rotation, though. So I like it. I would only recommend it for people wanting to see it at least once. That way you can make your own opinion. But you're probably going to walk away feeling like, man, it feels like this is a case of what could have been. And you try and figure out what it could have been. And it could have been a whole lot better, but it also could have been way fucking worse. Like, we could have gone really fucking stupid with this movie, and it nearly did. Thanks to studio fuckery. But,
Fuckery.
I like the movie. I have no problem really like keeping it in the collection, like I just said. So
I appreciate the work that they put into the film initially, where this is the last thing I'll show. They actually had a stand up cutout of Kurt Russell that was life size, so they could use that as scale to make the set around everybody.
And that block of ice is fucking CGI again too.
It is, and
God,
it was right here as well.
Ugh.
Like, what is that supposed to be? They took everything that made the originals great and they forgot all about it. The insectoid thing doesn't necessarily work. The creatures on the ship didn't need to be the thing. They could have just been infected creatures that crash landed here because they were infected. All that got lost in translation thanks to the studio. So if you like The Thing, read The Thing comics. Those are supposed to be really cool. Read the synopsis on this.
The PlayStation video game from years ago.
I've heard that is also good.
That is fucking dope. I do not know what happened to my copy. It could have been from my ex-wife.
Ooh.
She took a few things when that was over with that I never recovered and did not know about until years later. It's like, shit, where's this? Where's that? Oh, I think I know. Just saying.
That's how I feel like a lot about my well, not with my ex, my dad and my parents just threw away like my Michael Myers mask, a bunch of cards, action figures, nerd shit.
Fuckers.
Mm-hmm. I am filled with spite. Everyone's like, why are you so angry? I don't know.
Well, if anything, this movie wants me to kind of work on my Thing, the 1982 collection, just a little bit more, where I can maybe go get that NECA figure that's out there. That's the Ultimate McCready, which looks pretty cool. And I've seen it multiple times in like Target. So next time I go into one of those stores, if I see it, probably going to pick it up.
Okay, so full disclosure, I went to buy that for you today, and Target is out of them.
Fuck.
Yep. And they're not that bad. They're really reasonably priced.
Yeah, I know.
So I tried. They suck, but I will go in person next week.
No worries. All right, Kevin, any last thoughts before we throw on
out? I'm glad we did the John Carpenter month. I'm sorry this didn't go right with it, but I'm glad that we got to tell some funny jokes again. I'm glad that we got to talk about why something didn't work because of the studios and not the cast. And it wasn't a waste of watching it because there's a moral to it other than don't wear fake earrings. The moral is studios, take your hands out of the pie.
Yeah, and it also leads to fun discussion with us, and that's ultimately what we're here for. We don't always agree on everything. Sometimes we do, sometimes we don't. 2011's the thing. This is another one of those. But thank you everybody for tuning in, Screamers. We want to thank you all for subscribing to our channel. We are close to 300. If you can help us get to there by the end of the year, that'd be freaking fantastic. So please hit that like button. Comment below. You got any? Are you a fan of this movie? Are you not a fan of this movie? Got any favorite comments or quotes or anything, any sort of ideas about this movie? Put it below. We do read the comments. So please hit that subscribe button, hit the little bell notification, keep you in line with when we have our new videos dropping. We want to thank everybody for tuning in, Screamers. We'll see your asses next time. Make sure you check us out on all of our social media platforms. We got Facebook, Twitter. We are at Suns and Shadows. We're also on Instagram at Suns and Shadows Cast. We are at SunsAndShadows.com. Thank you again, everybody, and we'll see you down the road.